I step into the office, my heels clicking softly against the polished floor, and for a moment, I pause. The desk is gone. The corner where I once sat, stacking files, scribbling notes, and planning my future. It's empty. They took it, of course. A promotion passed me by, my ideas dismissed, my seat handed to someone else with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. But I'm not that girl anymore. I glance out the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawls below me in a glittering mosaic of ambition, and I can feel it, the irony settling in like sunlight through the blinds. My phone buzzes against my silk blouse. Another message from my old manager. Can we talk? It's urgent. I breathe in, the faint scent of roasted coffee curling through the room, and for the first time in years, I allow myself a small smile. I adjust the sleeve of my blouse, feeling the smooth fabric against my wrist, and let my gaze wander over the office that isn't just mine. It's a reflection of every quiet victory I've clawed from the shadows. Pride and memory tangled together, bitter and sweet. Every late night, every rejection, every whispered doubt, I carry them here, in this quiet strength that no one else can take. I tap a finger against my desk, a gentle, rhythmic promise. They took my desk, but now I own the floor. Years ago, I was sitting at that very desk, only it wasn't mine yet. I was 24, fresh out of graduate school, heart brimming with ambition but constantly reminded of my place, or what others thought it should be. My first big meeting felt more like a trial by fire. My mentor at the time, a brilliant but impatient woman named Margaret, had warned me. They'll test your patience more than your skill. Don't let them see the fear in your hands. I laughed it off then, but I remember the sting of truth in her words as if it were yesterday. The conference room was cramped, the air heavy with recycled anxiety. My family had urged me to settle for a safer path, something more predictable. I had heard their voices the day I announced my job at the tech firm. Why risk so much? Can't you just take something steady? You're too young to fail. Their words pressed down like bricks, and my chest tightened. My hands shook as I signed the employment papers, and for a brief moment, I wondered if I was chasing a dream or just running from their doubts. Then there was the incident that changed everything. During a critical meeting, I presented a strategy one had spent nights perfecting. I looked around the table, bracing for approval, only to be met with polite nods and the senior manager dismissing my ideas in front of the team. The lump in my throat was sharp, hot. I could feel tears threatening to spill, but I swallowed them. I clenched my fist beneath the table, the smooth edge of my grandmother's ring pressing into my skin. She had given it to me the day I left home, whispering, "Courage isn't loud, it's quiet. Let them doubt you. Just keep moving." That night, I sat in my tiny apartment, papers scattered across the floor, and I made a decision. I would no longer wait for validation. I would no longer let a desk, a title, or someone else's approval define me. The next morning, I started taking steps toward independence, learning, networking, and quietly building my own foundation. Every rejection became fuel, every no, a stepping stone. That small ring on my finger felt heavier with purpose than it ever had as a simple heirloom. By the time I walked out of that first office, I was already planning my return, not as the timid girl with shaky hands, but as someone who would own far more than a desk. The path wasn't glamorous. It started in a small co-working space downtown, my laptop balanced on a wobbly table, stacks of notebooks spilling over the edges. I called myself freelance, but in truth, I was building everything from scratch, pitching, cold emailing, teaching myself software I'd never imagined touching. Every evening, when the office lights dimmed and the city hummed below, I sat alone, sometimes with tears stinging my eyes, sometimes with quiet exhilaration. Every setback felt personal, every small victory monumental. Then came Alexine Carter. She was everything I aspired to be, 45, sharp, unflappable, and known in the industry for turning overlooked talent into rising stars. I remember the day I nervously showed her a prototype of a project I had spent months perfecting. She didn't smile at first. She looked at me, studying the tremor in my hands, the subtle hesitation in my voice. Then, with a tilt of her head, she said. "You're ready. Now, go show them what you can do." That single endorsement was more than a boost. It became a lifeline. I immersed myself. Nights bled into mornings as I coded, designed, and pitched ideas that no one had dared to try. I faced skepticism at every corner, clients questioning my youth, colleagues underestimating my expertise, and sometimes my own self-doubt whispering, "Maybe they're right. Maybe you're in over your head." But I refused to let those whispers define me. Slowly, my work gained traction. Landing my first big client felt like holding the first rays of sunlight after a storm. The first profitable project made me taste independence, the kind that doesn't rely on a desk someone else could claim. Each success was quiet, deliberate. I posted modest updates on social media, never revealing the scope, never letting them see how high I was climbing. Money followed talent, and with money, freedom. I rented a small office, decorated it with books, art, and the little trinkets that reminded me of the journey. My grandmother's ring, the notebooks I once slept beside, sketches of ideas that had almost been discarded. I wasn't showing off, I was reclaiming space, my own kind of territory. By the time I was 30, my projects had expanded into multiple floors of a midtown building. Yet no one from my past knew. My family thought I was doing well, somewhere, blissfully unaware that I had gone from the girl who lost her desk to a woman whose decisions now affected hundreds of lives. I kept it quiet, deliberate, because power, I realized, is sweetest when it's built silently, away from prying eyes. And every so often when I walked past that old office building, I smiled. Not with bitterness, but with quiet satisfaction. They had taken my desk, yes, but that small, stolen corner had only fueled a fire that would burn far beyond any single room, any single floor. It was a Thursday morning when the past finally walked through my doors. I had just finished reviewing quarterly reports, sipping my espresso slowly, savoring the silence before the day erupted. My assistant buzzed through. "Ms. Bennett, there are visitors here to see you, your family." For a moment, my heart skipped. I hadn't seen them in nearly 2 years. Not because I didn't want to, but because every time I tried, their words echoed back at me. Why risk so much? Why not just settle? I stood, smoothing my silk skirt, and told her to send them up. The elevator chimed, and out they stepped, my mother, my father, my older brother. Their faces looked hesitant, scanning the space like they'd just walked into a world they didn't recognize. My office wasn't ostentatious, but it was deliberate. Cream walls lined with abstract art, bookshelves curated with titles I had learned from, a few personal photographs that spoke volumes without words. The windows stretched from wall to wall, flooding the room with morning light that turned the polished floor into a mirror. "Claire," my mother said softly, her voice carrying something between guilt and awe. I gestured to the seating area, a set of low, modern couches that looked more like a lounge than a boardroom. "Please. Sit." They did, their movements slow, almost reverent. My father's eyes scanned the room, landing on the framed plaque of my company's first major award. My brother glanced at the view, then back at me, as though searching for the girl they once knew. "Your assistant said you own this place?" my father finally asked, clearing his throat. A small smile played on my lips. "I don't just own this office," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I own the floor. And the two above it." Silence. It stretched, heavy and wide. I walked toward the glass wall and let them sit with that truth for a moment. "Remember when you told me to play it safe? That I was too young to fail." I turned back to them, my heels clicking against the floor with every step. Well, I did fail many times. And every single failure built this. I gestured around us. Every rejection, every doubt, every time someone told me no, it's all right here. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. My father shifted, uncomfortable, pride and shame battling in his face. "We didn't know," he said finally. "No," I said softly, "you didn't. Because I didn't let you." Their silence wasn't cruel. It was stunned. The kind of silence that comes when reality doesn't quite fit the picture you've carried in your head for years. I crossed the room and sat across from them, folding one leg over the other, letting the moment breathe. This, I said, gesturing to the room, is what happens when you stop waiting for permission. They just stared, wide-eyed. My brother leaned forward, running a hand through his hair. Claire, this is incredible. You're incredible. I smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a girl seeking approval. It was the quiet, unshakable smile of a woman who had already found it in herself. For the first time, I saw them not as the towering figures of my childhood, but as people, flawed, afraid, just as human as me. And in that moment, I realized I held something I never had before, the power to choose how this story ended. My mother spoke first, her voice trembling. We're proud of you, Claire. We should have told you that sooner. Her words softened something sharp inside me, but I didn't let it erase the years I had fought alone. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I'm glad you're proud, I said, my tone gentle but steady. But pride isn't enough. If we're going to have a relationship moving forward, some things have to change. My father frowned slightly, as though bracing for a lecture, but I kept my voice calm, conversational, almost businesslike. Mom, I said, turning to her, you have to stop comparing me to every cousin and neighbor who took the safe route. I didn't choose safe, and I never will. Support me without trying to mold me into someone else. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Dad, I said, shifting my gaze, you need to stop seeing me as your little girl who needs protecting. I need you to see me as an equal. Ask about my work, my decisions, not because you're worried I'll fail, but because you respect what I've built. His jaw tightened, then relaxed. He gave a slow nod. Finally, I turned to my brother. And you, I said, allowing the smallest hint of a smile, you have dreams too. Stop hiding them behind sarcasm. If you want something, go after it. No more excuses. He looked at me, startled, but there was something almost relieved in his expression, as if he had been waiting for someone to call him out. These aren't punishments, I continued. They're conditions. If you want me in your life, you have to show up, not just when I'm winning, but when I'm working, struggling, creating. You have to let go of the version of me you had in your heads. The room was quiet, but not the uncomfortable kind of quiet from before. This was a stillness that felt cleansing. My mother reached for my hand, her touch tentative, almost asking permission. We can do that, she said softly. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. Good, I said, sitting back, feeling the weight in my chest loosen. Because I'm not giving up this floor. And I'm not giving up myself. In the weeks that followed, something shifted, not just in them, but in me. My father started calling, not to question my choices, but to ask about my projects, genuinely curious. My mother sent me articles about women CEOs and wrote "Thought of you" in the margins. And my brother, he surprised me the most. He finally enrolled in the design program he'd been secretly researching for years. Every time we spoke, I felt the walls that had once separated us slowly dissolve. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die hard, but there was an honesty now, a respect that hadn't been there before. One evening, long after the office had emptied, I stood alone by the window, the city glittering below me like a promise. I slipped my grandmother's ring off my finger and held it up to the light, the gold catching the last rays of sunset. I thought about her words. Courage isn't loud, it's quiet. Quiet courage had brought me here, not revenge, not anger, just the steady refusal to give up on myself. I placed the ring back on my finger, a silent thank you to the woman who believed in me before I knew how to believe in myself. I walked across the floor, my heels clicking in a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. This place wasn't just an office anymore. It was a testament to every risk I'd taken, every night I'd stayed up fighting for a life no one thought I could have. And as I turned off the lights, I smiled to myself, letting the words roll softly off my tongue, the perfect punctuation to my story. They took my desk. Now I own the floor.